Hey gorgeous, welcome to Happy Go Fabulous. I am so thrilled that you're here. This is our space where we get real about life, the good, the messy and all the juicy bits in between. Real talk, real life and a whole lot of delicious living. But I must warn you, listening may cause unexpected outbreaks of fabulousness and real life magic. Hi, I'm Catherine and I am so incredibly passionate about helping inspired, motivated, impact-driven, freedom-seeking people just like you to do the deep inner work to create those beautiful outer wonders in life. It's all about revolutionising your relationship with yourself, where you fall madly, deeply in love with who you are and create a life so fabulous you can't wait to jump out of bed every morning to live it. Ready? Because ordinary living is so last season. Life's waiting and it's time to make it fabulous. Let's shimmy on in. Hey there, how are you? This week I'm chatting with you about why I built the Labyrinths on my property here. And I know a lot of you were following along my journey that I was posting on socials, and it's a couple of months ago now, but I was posting it on socials when I was building this beautiful, beautiful creation. And I'll talk a little bit more about what labyrinths are, why I did this, the process I went through, and really sharing with you the experience, not just the what, but there was a lot of unexpected experiences that I went through, and I loved that. So I'm going to share those with you as well, and I'll just let you know how I use it and like what it is, why I did it, how I use it. And so labyrinths they don't have to be a circle, but mine is a circle on the ground. I think it's about 15 metres in diameter. I think it's about 15 or 20 metres in diameter. It's relatively big. It's not huge, but it's not small. And it's different to a maze. A lot of people think, oh, it's a maze. It's technically not. Mazes are designed to confuse you and to get you lost, and they have lots of alternative paths and often false paths that lead you in a direction that lead you to nowhere, basically. So you have to backtrack, and following a maze kind of needs that logic to be able to work out. It's a puzzle. How do you actually get out or get through the maze? And I've been in mazes before and I have this, I do not like them. They're often got big hedges. They're often confusing. And I have this fear that I will be trapped in there and never able to get out of them. So the labyrinth is different because the labyrinths are designed to be one way in and one way out. And you can't get lost. So a true labyrinth, you can't get lost. And they're designed to have a purpose. And I guess mazes are designed to have a purpose, which is to get you lost and confuse you. But the labyrinths, their purpose is leading you on this meaningful journey to its center and then out again. And it's a spiritual process of really surrendering yourself to the only path of the labyrinth and freeing your mind so you can be more contemplative and meditative and reflective, not using your mind to strategize how do you get out of the maze. So they're designed, and they've been like, there's a whole lot of different types of labyrinths. And would you believe, like for those of you that are watching on YouTube, I've got a book here. I bought this after I created my labyrinth, but it's the complete guide to labyrinths, using the sacred spiral for power, protection, transformation and healing. And there's a lot of information in here as to the history of labyrinths and the different ways that you can use them. Now, this is useful. In all honesty, I haven't read a lot of this book because for me, my labyrinth is more of an intuitive process and to use for my spiritual reflective practices. So, but there's lots of very cool information in here. And there's different types, like labyrinths date back in history, hundreds, thousands of years. And there's a very famous one called and I'm probably not pronouncing this correctly, but the Chartres Cathedral in France. For all my French friends, can you please, I'm not sure how you'll let me know, but I'm sure that's probably not the right pronunciation. But there's a cathedral in France with a very famous labyrinth. And so they're commonly on the ground. They're commonly made out of like stone or paved into the ground, like the pattern into the ground. A lot of them are stenciled on grass as well. So they're flowers and plants to make the paths as well. And you can also, so often it's about labyrinths, we often think of them as being a walking path, but there's ones that you can print out as well, or even just in a book, and you can follow them with your fingers, and that's kind of that meditation practice as well. So, but in all honesty, for me, it was a much more intuitive process and something that interested me. I guess I first came across labyrinths when I went on a silent retreat many, many, many years ago. There was a Buddhist monastery when I was living in Canberra. It was a couple of hours from Canberra, and it was a silent retreat. And people often say, "Oh my God, how did you cope being on a silent retreat?" It was 3 days, so it wasn't a huge amount of time. I loved it. I absolutely loved it because we weren't allowed to talk to anybody. We weren't allowed to talk, and I didn't have to connect with anybody. I didn't know anybody there, which was great. I didn't have to connect or make small talk. I was there for my own pure spiritual practice and insight. So not talking was actually very cool. And we were doing a lot of meditation, and I found some of the meditation practices where you needed to quieten your mind and sit for long periods of time. I found that really challenging. But when we went out into the garden, there was a labyrinth. We did a walking meditation, but there was a labyrinth there. And there was something that it felt really good. I really, really enjoyed it. And because I think the movement helped me to quieten my mind. If you've been following me, I have a very busy mind. I have a very, very busy mind. And I've been learning how to help my mind to be less busy. So when I was walking, I found when my body was moving, it helped to quieten my mind. So the process of the labyrinth having a path that I didn't fear getting trapped in. And also labyrinths tend to be lower, like they don't have the hedges around them that have that closed in feeling. They tend to just be a path on the ground. And so I got exposed to them at that retreat, which I loved. There was another time when I went away for a weekend with a girlfriend of mine, and we were just having in the Kangaroo Valley of New South Wales. We were just having a beautiful girls' weekend away, and we went and had a massage with this woman, and she had a labyrinth on her property. Like, it was just small acreage, and she had a labyrinth. And she said, "If you want to go and have a walk around the labyrinth." And I'm like, "Oh, I love this." So there was something obviously that I was really drawn to, and there's been different programs that I've been on. There's a beautiful labyrinth in Canberra. For my friends, you might not know about this. I didn't know about it until a couple of years ago, but it's up overlooking the lake in Barton, and it's near the church there. I don't know if it's the Presbyterian church, and I don't know, in all honesty, if you can have like public access to it. But I was part of a workshop I think we were doing, and we walked the labyrinth as part of that, which was very cool. And where I really, really, really fell in love with labyrinths was when I was doing some of my psychosomatic training up in Queensland, and I stayed on site at the retreat centre. And so we were doing the study. I did 2 lots of this study, and each program was about 10 days long. And they had a relatively small labyrinth on the property, but every morning I would walk that labyrinth, and it was a process of, do you know what? It really helped me to study. It helped me to lock in some of the stuff that I was studying. It helped me to really release stuff that was going on for me at the time. And it was just a really beautiful process that I would, in in the morning before we did our study, I would walk the labyrinth, and then of an evening to help lock in the learnings, because it was pretty intense training that we were doing as well. I really helped it to lock in the learnings, but to release some stuff. So just the walking. So for me, labyrinths have just felt just beautiful. And as part of my planning for moving here, so that I've had this, dream for long time to live in our, to do the sea change and to live at our sanctuary by the sea. And part of my planning and my dreaming process and my manifesting process is to have my vision book. So for those of you listening, I've actually got my vision book just in front of me at the moment. For those of you watching, you'll see it. But I had the vision of what I wanted to create, and there's a labyrinth there. So when I was looking at my visioning process, I always knew that I was going to create a labyrinth, and it wasn't that I was going to buy a property around the labyrinth, but I knew that I would have a labyrinth on the property. And when we came and had a look at this place, I was sort of, envisioning where that could be. And there was because we're on 5 acres and there's different spaces, but there was one particular space that I just went, I think it's going to be around about here. I think it's going to be around about here. And really, so we moved in July last year, and it was probably in October where I started to go, okay, I'm ready to create my labyrinth. Because, moving in and just getting settled and all that sort of stuff. And it was winter, and I think, I just lose track of time. So I think it was around October. And I said to John, my husband, I'm ready. How are we going to do this? So that's how we work. It's just like, I've got the idea. How can you help me make that happen? So we walked around the property and I said, this is where I think it's going to be. And I got out my pendulum. I don't have it here. Oh, yes, I do. I have my pendulum here. So I'm just showing you my pendulum, showing, if you're listening, it's a rose quartz pendulum. So I said to John, I'm just going to walk around the property and get a sense for where I think it might be. And I'm also going to use the pendulum to get a sense of where it could be. I guess I'm just backtracking a little bit. I had a girlfriend, when I was talking to her about it, she said, you need to make sure that you're in the right vortex, and you need to make sure that, the ley lines and the water and the this and the that and then that and then that. Now, I love her to pieces, but it just sounded too complex. It sounded like I don't want to over-engineer this. For me, it's about my personal practice, and I will energetically know where it's meant to be. So I walked around the property with my pendulum. And the way that I use the pendulum, I can get a very clear yes. So for those that are watching, the pendulum is doing a circular motion. So that is saying yes. And then if I think no, and for those that are watching now, the pendulum is now swinging back and forward, not in a circular motion. So when I would walk around the property, I would hold my pendulum and I would just tune into how it felt for me, but also how it felt. So I already did a walk around without the pendulum, and I got a sense of where I thought it might be energetically. And then I did another walk around with the pendulum. And I walked in the area, and sometimes it would do yes, this is the vicinity. And then when I kept walking, the pendulum would just do a very strong no. And I'm like, oh, okay, so it is in this area. So I did I'm not even good with measurements. I couldn't even say what the squareness. Maths was not my strong suit. I don't know how big. It's not like a kilometre square. If I look at that way, maybe 50 metres by 50 metres. So whatever that is, 50 metres square. Is that what it is? Anyway, maybe 100 metres square. Maybe, 50. 50. I don't know. So I walked in that area, and there was bits in sort of up to one end of it where the pendulum was very, very, yep, it's around this area. And it was doing big. If you're watching now, this is reflecting what was happening. It was doing like, yep, definite. And then when I made one step to the right, it just went, no. And I'm going, oh, okay, so you're showing me where the border of the labyrinth is going to be. And this next bit, I think I captured it on socials. It might have just been a story, so I don't even know if I've got a record of it. But I had the pendulum and I'm going, where is the border of the labyrinth? And it was spinning, and it won't replicate now. But the pendulum just flung out of my hand for about, I think, 10 meters. Like it wasn't just it dropped in front of me, but it flung out of my hand at the question where I said, where is the border of the labyrinth? And I was like, oh my God, like, John, did you just see that? And he was videoing me doing bits. I don't think he saw that. I don't know. But it was just like, oh my God, that just flung out. And then when I went over to that where the pendulum landed, I just asked the question of my guides, is this the border of the labyrinth? And the answer was yes. And then I just went through that process and I sort of mapped out where the border of it was going to be. And we placed markers so we could remember. And then I would go out into that area and going, is this where the labyrinth is meant to be? And it was like, yes. And then I intuitively got, and there's a whole lot of research and stuff about, where do you position your labyrinth? But mine was just intuitively to have the entrance of the labyrinth facing east. And east is about where the sun rises. And if you all have been following me, you know the power of sunrise for me. So sunrise is about the dawning of the new day, the beginnings, and then facing east is that facing the newness, and then having my back to west, and that's where you exit the labyrinth. So there's a whole lot of meaning for me about how I've put it together. Now, does it marry up with what others have done? I'm not even sure around that. Maybe not. But it's my labyrinth, so I can do what I want. So anyway, we marked out where, this is where John was really great. So we marked out, east, west, north, and south. And then we also, this was so good, John, we put, we measured across, we did all the measuring bit, put a big post in the middle of it, and then he tied rope around the post, and we put the rope out to the border, and then got pink spray paint that washes away, and we did a circle like the old compasses that you had at school. We did the circle so we could see where the border was going to be. And then it was just like, okay, so how many layers do I want, and what do I want my design to be? And I didn't want my design, there's a whole lot of different designs for labyrinths. I didn't want mine to be just walking in a circular motion in, walking in a circular motion out. I wanted mine to be a little bit more of a loopy labyrinth, where you sort of go one direction, then come back, and then go around again, like right around and then back. And it's sort of a little bit of that, the path, the walk goes longer doing that. And also what is more intuitive, and I've read some stuff about afterwards, by doing it that way, you're doing the crossover. So when you're turning left and then back right and then left again, and you're going in that circular motion, you're swapping between the left and right hemispheres of your brain. So you're stepping into, the different left, right brain, masculine, feminine, and you're doing that as you walk around. So the body is experiencing additional elements. And that's not what I went into, that's not my purpose why I did it, but it was like, oh, that's really cool. That's really cool to be able to do that. So we mapped it out, and then I thought, okay, this is how big the labyrinth is. How many paths do I want? And how many can fit here? And it was like, I think it was 6 or 7, maybe 6. And a lot of the common ones have 7. So then it was just like, well, how am I going to make it? How are we going to do this? And it was about putting rocks on the ground. And we have a lot of granite on our property. I think our property was they probably did some excavation, and there's a whole lot of rocks down near the water tank, which is pretty inconvenient because it's the opposite side of where the labyrinth is. And so creating then we were into creation stage. So we mapped it all out. We put all the lines down. And then it's like, okay, let's get the rocks and let's just start putting the rocks around. I didn't want to design where the entry points were and the turning points were. It was just like, let's just put the rocks down. And John and I filled a wheelbarrow each. And this took me way out of my comfort zone, because where the rocks are in icky, like snake territory. That was just like, I'm sure this is a breeding ground for snakes. And it wasn't hot, but it just terrified, not even just like, oh, I'm a bit nervous. It terrified me having to get rocks. And John said, if it's your labyrinth, I'll help you, but I'm not doing it for you. And I'm just like, oh man, like surely if you really loved me, you would do it. And so anyway, we were getting the rocks and we had to dig and hammer and stuff like that. And we filled one wheelbarrow each and we're pushing it up. And where the labyrinth is compared to where the rocks are, I think it's about it'd be like 200 meters, maybe. I don't know, probably exaggerating. I don't know. It felt like 5 kilometers, but it was across the property and it's up a hill. So pushing it up, and it's just like, man, this is hard work. But we put the first layer down and I'm just like, oh, this feels really, really good. And then I think this might have been when John had started working back in Canberra again for his final term of teaching. And I was here during the week on my own. And I would just there was one day that I just went, you know what, I really want to get as much done as I can. And, it was a hard day. I can feel it now. There's part of me, I like to finish things. When I start things, I don't like to leave many things unfinished. So when I set myself, I knew I wouldn't finish the whole labyrinth while he was away, but I set myself, I wanted to achieve 3 rings. Now we did the central ring, and that was smaller. Then the next one was bigger, then bigger and bigger and bigger. And I thought, I want to get 3 of these done. And I was filling rocks up, and I remember that day and some of the stuff that I experienced from creating the labyrinth was a real, how do I describe it? Release. It was very freeing, rich experience in the creation of the labyrinth. And number one, it was about trusting my inner guidance, that the connection with my guides and the pendulum. Like, I've used my pendulum a lot, but it was just like, it had so much strength that I was not aware of before. And my connection was just like, wow, this is so cool. And, tuning into the energy of the property, but the energy of where the labyrinth was just powerful, energetically powerful for me. And it also broke through a lot of fears. The day that I had the pendulum, there was one of the big kangaroos around. So this is earlier in the piece of us living here. We'd only been here a couple of months, and there was this big kangaroo that was hanging around that I would get frightened of. And when I was doing the labyrinth, he kept jumping up close, and I'm just like, fuck, what's he trying to do? Is he going to attack me? And there was like a really funny social media post with me running away from the kangaroo, and he kept jumping. And I think he was just intrigued as to what I was doing. It's kind of like, what are you doing, lady? What are you doing? But that was really interesting. And the kangaroos love the labyrinth at the moment. Often when I go up there, there's all kangaroo poo around the paths. So I think they go up, and I haven't actually seen them hop around the paths, but they've definitely been in the labyrinth, and I think they really enjoy that. And it's very powerful, the energy. And my dog, so Boston loves it. He will quite often just follow me around the labyrinth. And my daughter's dog, Mabel, she she does her own track around the labyrinth, but they like being there. So tuning into the energy of the space, that was just incredible in the creation, but it was hard. It was really, really hard work in lifting. Physically, it was hard because I would have to dig these rocks out of the ground, and they're kind of, how do I say, maybe 50 centimeters across. They were heavy-ish. Like, they're not all that big, but they're biggish. They're not just little pebbles. They were biggish rocks. And so digging them, I had to pluck up the courage to get in and not think that I was going to be attacked by a snake every time that I went in there. So I really had to step into that fear, and physically hard, and then pushing it up, pushing the wheelbarrow up the hill was hard. And I know that there was days that I cried going, what the fuck am I doing? Like, this is hard work. And I would just cry. Oh, I can feel it now. I can get right back into that. And I cried and cried and cried. And there was one day where I just went up to the labyrinth and I unloaded this layer of rocks, and I just sat and cried. But it wasn't crying because it was hard. It was crying because of this release of the year that we had, and a whole lot of things. It felt like it was this release, that this pushing, but it was this hard, but it was powerful. It was releasing. It was a process that I went through, and it was emotionally really, really hard. But overcoming those fears along the way, but it was such a release that I did it. And when I think I'd set myself a challenge to maybe do 3 layers to get the third one finished. And when John come back, I had done 4. And I sat at that labyrinth and I just went, I've done this. It's fucking hard work, but I've done this. There's still stuff to go. But it was, God, that was such a release. And then he got back, and because now the circles were getting bigger and bigger, and just like, oh man, John, can we do it? Like, can we be a bit smarter about this? And instead of me pushing up, I don't know how many loads of wheelbarrows I did. It was a lot. And I said, can we do this a little bit smarter? Because I'm not loving this. And I said, can we hook the trailer up to the car, fill the trailer up, and then drive up? And he's like, yeah, of course, easy. And we were doing that. Did we do a layer first? I'm not sure. But anyway, we had some friends coming to stay, beautiful friends from Bhutan that work with John, that the husband works with John, and they were just coming to visit for the weekend. And they said, is there anything we can help around the place? And I'm like, always an ideas person. I'm like, maybe you could help load some of the rocks. And John and I had talked about it. I was saying, maybe we could do a working bee and get people to come and help with the labyrinth. And maybe we could just get, invite people. And he said, just be really mindful about doing that. He said, because this is your labyrinth, thinking about the energy of different people coming, and do you really want that? And I'm like, oh, no, I want to do it myself, like him and me, but I want to do it myself. And then after I did that day where it was so freaking hard, I just went, no, there needs to be an easier way for this. And so when our friend said, is there anything we can help you with? I went, maybe you could help us move some rocks and fill the trailer with rocks. And they're going, yeah, sure. I'm like, we set up a conga line, a little, so I didn't have to dig the rocks out. John and Jiv dug the rocks out. They passed them along the line to the next person, to the next person, to the next person, who put it into the trailer. And it was easy. It was like, oh my God, so easy, because you just passing a rock along the line, and it felt really, really beautiful. It felt that the generosity of these beautiful friends of ours and the camaraderie and the community. I said, John, this energy feels really good. Let's not just get them to help us fill the trailer load, but let's get them to help us create the next layers around the labyrinth. And they did. We got 2 more of the layers done. And it was just like, oh, this feels amazing. So that community spirit, from me wanting to do it on my own, I'll do it myself too. I really want that beautiful energy and generosity of people helping involved, and infusing it into the labyrinth was beautiful. And so then the next layers where I think maybe John and I did the final couple of layers, and then it was about what rocks match, and I had to go around again and go, well, what feels right. And then it was creating the design, and this was kind of intuitive, but based off some designs about where I walk in and where do I want the gates to turn and to come back. So when I was building it, it was just circles, and then it was the design element. That was beautiful. That felt really good, and it flowed. It was like easy as that I could picture it in my mind. I needed John to help me with some of the technicality of some of the bits. And then the next weekend, I think a girlfriend was coming to stay, and she just helped us to, some rocks just didn't feel right together. And it was about getting the flow of the rocks. So the process was just so incredibly beautiful. It wasn't just about building a labyrinth. For me, it was actually a really spiritual healing experience. And I was not expecting that at all. I was not expecting the creation of it to feel so good and to break through. And that day that it was hard and I cried, I released so much stuff that it wasn't hardness about, it was hardness about what I was doing, but it was releasing so much other stuff behind that I'd been holding in. And so I really thank the creation of the labyrinth to help me, allow me to do that. And so what I do now, so it's created and it's beautiful. It's absolutely incredibly beautiful, and it's so energetic. There's special guides that come in. I have a connection. There is some Indigenous spirit around here. There's the nature spirit, and there's also my guides that is sort of in that place as well, so I can connect with them really, really powerfully. And I use it for meditations. Do I do it every day? No, I don't, but I do it most days, I would say, is that I walk the labyrinth. And the way that I walk the labyrinth is that sometimes I will just contemplate. I will just like, what's life bringing for me at the moment? And when I walk into the labyrinth, it's often about, what's the thing that I'm wanting to contemplate? And then walking into the center and then walking out is often about getting answers or the letting go. So sometimes I'll walk in saying, this is what's happening, give me guidance, help me. I want to let go of what's happening, and I'll leave it in the center of the labyrinth and then ask for it to be taken and transmuted. And then on the way out, it's about leaving that behind or getting insight. So I use it. There's no set way. There's no absolutely set way. I get insight to questions. I actively release stuff. I actively call in stuff. There's days where there's just actively nothing. It's just, I don't know if that's a thing, but there's just nothing. I just walk the labyrinth and it's just, my mind is quiet, and that in itself is just a beautiful thing. And it's, and sometimes I just can pick up on the energy of the animals that have been there before me or overnight. It's like, is it fresh rupoo or is it older? Where have they been? And do you know what? The kangaroos, they often will just gather around, which is interesting, but they'll often just gather around and watch me in the labyrinth. They're like, what is she doing? What is she doing? I wish they could talk. I wish I could create that connection deeper just to find out what they're thinking. So it's such a beautiful space. And what I also found out, just backtracking a little bit, is I've been dipping my toe into feng shui, and I'm a complete novice around that. And I was doing some reading around it and just the different directions. And there's, when I was doing some study, I'm just trying to get it here. So I got my compass and the wisdom, my wisdom, I don't know if you call it a corner or not. My wisdom area is in the northeast, And that is just where the labyrinth is. So you've got your success area, your relationships, your health and wisdom. And when I didn't do it because of that, but I was following up on some of this feng shui stuff after I had done the labyrinth. And it was just like, oh, interesting that is in the wisdom corner of my property for me, because that's where I connect with my, that's not just where I connect with my wisdom, but it's really supercharged there. And I just think that's really cool and interesting. So when it was just an intuitive process for me and being guided and having my pendulum, I didn't need to do all the ley lines or any of that other stuff, or I just trusted my gut, and it's in such a beautiful, beautiful spot. So if you would like to come and experience that and visit and experience the power of the labyrinth for yourself, you are more than welcome. I am located at Binjie on the New South Wales South Coast, and I run personal sessions, so the intuitively guided. I'm running soul whisper sessions, the Akashic Records sessions. I do life and business coaching and strategy sessions, and I've been actually starting to run those from the property, which is cool. And we'll be running events, and I have the beautiful build your own break, like the little mini retreats where you can come and stay at my gorgeous property, my gorgeous sanctuary by the sea, and you can experience the labyrinth as part of that mini retreat and the programs that I run. And so I'll pop all the details in the show notes so you can access that. And, I think maybe now in wrapping up that I'll go and wander around the labyrinth and just contemplate life. So see you next time, gorgeous. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to Happy Go Fabulous. I hope you loved it. If you did, could I ask a big favour? Please subscribe, leave a review, and most importantly, share the love and let your besties know about the podcast. This will help get it into the hearts and ears of all the gorgeous souls who need a little bit of fabulous in their life. If you'd like some more high vibe happiness in your life, come and visit me on my Happiness Hive socials, and make sure you've signed up to my newsletter, your weekly drop of juicy goodness. Pop over to my Happiness Hive website and click on the link Working with Catherine. I'd love to help you make life amazing. Until next time, keep being fabulous.